And there we go. Move 1, e4. I'm going to go d5. Now, after e5, I'm going to go knight f6. Sacrificing a pawn in case white had gone bishop b5 or c4. Now, after my opponent takes sorry, just lets me take on d5, like it's usually fine in this way. And c5, this does not allow white to put the pawn on d4. So in general, I think black's pretty happy with this. Could have gone c4 while I had the chance. I elected not to. Yeah, here's the question whether I want to go for g6 or for e6 or e5. e5 feels a bit funky. White may then go f4 maybe. Or even knight e2 and then... Let me just go e6. Trying to stifle the bishop on e3. Castles, 92, everything quite normal. I guess knight will go to g3 at some point. In general, a fairly equal position. Bishop f4 is interesting. Claiming that e5 is just a weakness, so that's worth provoking. Can also go knight d5, provoking in the exchange, but it feels like those positions will be a bit sterile. So I'll just go bishop d7. Not an impressive developing move by any means, but it seems reasonable enough. And knight g3. Very logical, but now I use the chance to get a tempo for bishop for knight d4 now. After bishop a2, I'm going to deploy my bishop quite nicely on c6. Now it feels like I've achieved a fair bit, and I should have a somewhat better position. Now, after knight e2, knight d5 comes with tempo, attacking the bishop on f4. Bishop d2 might happen, or bishop e3. I think I'm fairly happy just to chop that one off on e3. Don't love having to exchange the other knight, but still I've got the bishop pair and there are no weaknesses in my position, so I should be doing fairly well. Now b4, that seems weird. Seems to be a free pawn to me, and when I see free pawns being offered, I take them. Otherwise, my opponent had played a very good game so far. Now it seems that I'm doing well. c4, that's logical. I think I'll just go a5. I could go bishop c3, rook moves, and then b4. But then my opponent would have maybe have some counterplay with d4 and those pawns moving forward. So I'm just going to keep it simple. Rook d1. You know what? Now that my pawn is one square further advanced, I'm just gonna go for bishop c3. Now b4, a4, b3. It's hopefully gonna be fairly quick. And I think after cb5, bishop a1, bc6, bishop moves back, so let's say e5, I don't think my opponent will have enough for the exchange. Yeah, there were some tactics there, like knight e4 could be tried, queen c7 attacking c6 and h2. If then d4, I would take on h2, king h1 and take on c6. The point is that I'm attacking the knight on e4. And yeah, in case of queen f3, I could go, yeah, I missed queen f3, whatever. We'll just follow the game instead. Yeah, there were some lines there like d5 in that case, ed5, bishop d5, queen h6. I mean, for like maybe queen f3 there, you could have followed on. Here also queen f3 seems a reasonable option. And yeah, my opponent is definitely fighting well. e4 would threaten to establish two passed pawns, but then I could just take on c6, so that was not an option. Here after rook b1, I think I just invite the exchange of rooks. And all of these exchanges should just, should in general just lead me closer to victory. Probably gonna threaten mate now somehow, in lack of a better thing to do with queen e4, queen h3. So I'm obviously just gonna protect with g6, and that's gonna be pretty much game over. Queen f3 back. Now I go rook b8, attacking the bishop. If bishop a2, there's rook b2, and yeah, this is going to be over. Well played game by my opponent. But in the end, I think move 17 b4 was the culprit, giving away a pawn for no apparent reason. Apart from that, my opponent played very, very well. So now bishop is lost, and there we go. Okay, thank you, and we will find another challenge. Let me see. Oh, this is a good one. JBM, Jean-Baptiste Mulot. Famous French international. Extremely exciting London system. Which is characterized by the bishop on f4 and those three pawns in the center, c3, d4, and e3. And my opponent knows what he's doing with queen c7. Yeah, I don't know if this is great. I just thought of this idea one day. What if I go dc5 and queen a4 in this position? And then I thought I'll give it a try in a serious game at some point. But apparently that serious game is going to be this particular game against my French opponent, which was not planned, but that's okay. Nobody watches these things anyway, right? Okay, e4. Probably bishop b5 could be a move. Bishop c2 then maybe. I want to push e5. Yeah, he's taking a lot of time to think here. Problem with d4, logical move is I take, then knight e4, queen e4, and there's a double attack on h7 and also on b7. And he could only protect one, so I'm going to take the other. Bishop c6, queen b4. So I'm winning a pawn at the expense of my pawn structure, but I feel like the 3-1 majority on the queen side is going to be a huge factor, even though I've got a pretty ugly double pawn on f3 and f2. So I could go bishop e4, but I think that just helps him when he goes rook a8. So I think I'll just protect the pawn instead. Maybe b5 was an option, but a3 feels safer. Yeah, knight e5. It's obviously a pretty good move. It's a lot more annoying than I thought. Would like to play bishop e2, but then rook ac8, and I don't know what to do. So I'll go king e2 instead. Not thrilled about giving up the bishop for the knight, but I think that's the only way not to allow him any immediate play. Rook b8. The idea is clearly to go a5, but it feels a bit slow. I'll go rook c1. I think now, yeah, and bishop b4 is also interesting. Bishop e4. You know what? I'll go bishop e4. Seems all right. Regardless of what I was doing, the idea is always to meet a b4 with a4. And I have lost a pawn, but I've gained an extremely strong pass pawn. So now I go a4. Maybe fc8 was an option there instead of taking on b4. Because now after a4, I think I have a more or less winning position. I'm just pushing that pass pawn. I don't think there's a lot you can do about it. Yeah, now the pawn is just running. All the way. Being blockaded now, but my bishop is better than his knight, and also I have a very dangerous pass pawn, so this should be plain sailing. Rook c6, rook b6, collecting b4, then the other pawn starts running. f4 just to prevent e5, king e3 now. Knight b5 is fighting well. Yeah, rook b4 may actually not be a good move, so I'm going to give a check instead. Rook c8. Knight d6. I was expecting knight c7. Okay, rook d8. We push b4. And we went on time. That's why I was kind of relaxing at the end, because I knew I was winning that game on time anyway. Okay, it was an interesting fight, but it felt like after I won that pawn, although he fought well, I felt like I was always quite a bit better. Okay, so let's try this one. Marshmallow 2007 from Iran. We'll go c4 this time. Knight f6, we'll go g3. Bishop g2. knight c3, and I'm going to go for e4 next. The old but unique system, which is not bad. It's an opening. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll go f3. Usually I don't want to allow the bishop for the knight, because that would mean I have one less piece fighting for the d4 square. a6 now. Yeah, this is a bit weird to have the pawn on f3. Usually you have the pawn on h3, or when you're black, h6. So let me go b3 now, preparing d4, because I do like the, of course, I do like the Botvinnik structure, but getting a Maruzi structure should also not be bad. And now, after these exchanges, I have a safe little advantage. Queen d7 is a solid move, but it feels a bit aimless. Oh, there is a concrete aim to go for b5. That was a bit lazy on my part. Bishop h3, not particularly concerned about that. If he wants to exchange my bishop, I'm fine. That bishop had quite a few prospects anyway. e5, this one I don't like for my opponent, because the bishop was annoying on d4 and it's tempting to kick it away, but I think it comes at too high a price. Now the pawn on d6 is extremely weak, and I have a juicy square for the knight on d5. So here, rook a2 was obviously to go rook d2 later on, put pressure on d6. Now, I do have a possible tactic with rook to d2, but my opponent will go knight takes b6, I would go rook takes d6, and he would go knight takes c4. Point is, if I then take the queen on c6, knight e3 check happens. We'll then take the queen and take the rook later on, which means that I can't do that. So I'll go knight d5 instead, threatening a pretty juicy fork on e7, which my opponent missed. And that's the game right there. I always advocate for my opponents to play fairly slowly in this game, in these games, to try and learn. Obviously, you're gonna have problems with time then sometimes, but I think it's a better learning experience. In this case, my opponent quite obviously played a little too fast there, taking the bishop on b6, and he was punished. So another 3-minute game against Ahmed 2000 from Turkey with a pretty good rating. So let's see what my opponent's got up their sleeve. I'm going to go knight f3, and then I'm going to pre-move g3, no matter what. And bishop g2, and castles. And then we start the game. Okay, let me go d4, and b3. The double fianchetto, which I think Kramnik may have popularized. I think it was Kramnik, but I've been wrong before. Now either knight d2 or to go for c4. Knight d2 and then e4 or c4. I'll just go c4. Never mind. Queen c7, preparing e5. Rook e8 feels like over preparation to me. Okay, I'll go e4. And then I'll go d5. Normally, I guess you're not thrilled about going d5 in these positions, but I think now the queen on c7 looks a bit funny, which may make it justified. Also, my bishop on b2 is a bit funny, so I don't really know. I'm usually not that great in King's Indian positions anyway, but then again, who is? a6 looks a bit weird. I think b5 is not really on the cards. Okay, let me go rook to c1. Obviously, if my opponent intends to go cd5 at some point, that rook is going to be happy right there, being activized. Okay, so bishop g4 is annoying, but I think I'll just go f3. Because it's annoying in the sense that bishop e3 can come at some point, and then the bishop might sit on d4. I have a concrete idea in mind, which is exactly this one, that after the very logical bishop d7, b4 seems to trap the knight. And if that is the case, that would be very bad news for my opponent. cd5 is quite logical, but I think I'll just take back. Don't see any problems here. Oh, I'm so blind. I am so blind. I miss knight a4, bishop a4, rook c7. I miss in that case bishop d1, and my queen is not defended because of that silly knight on e1. That was really bad. I should just have taken the piece. Fortunately, he missed it. Now I'm just winning. Take the knight and move away. That was less than ideal. Try to activate some pieces now. No threats from my opponent as far as I can see. b5 would just prevent b4. And now after knight h5, do we play actively? No, we play technically. Knight h5, f5 is just not a threat at all. I think I'll just jump into c6 when I get the chance. Not worried about sacking a pawn, since I'll get a very strong square for the knight and d5. And probably I will gain control over the f-file as well. I'm also threatening in some lines to go g4, knight moves, and then a 4 could have 6. Take back, of course. Bishop g7. Many good moves. Queen c6 is good. Also f4 seems a bit more thematic. And g4. That's what I thought. Knight on h5 is looking very unfortunate now. Because f3 is the best try to muddy the waters, but I think I'll just take it. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Okay, yeah. Sorry, dude. It all hinged on one move there. Knight a4 would have been okay for black. The way it happened was just a loss for my opponent. So bad luck. Okay, we have the Gustafsson Gambit from Bulgaria. I don't know what the Gustafsson Gambit is, though. If anybody can explain, I would be happy to hear. Is it this one? No, that's the Wing Gambit. But we'll go for it anyway. Oh, b6. That is, sorry to say, that is a bit wimpy. There's no reason not to take that pawn. Just no reason. So now we'll instead play a Grand Prix attack without the pawns. Bishop d6 looks a bit weird. I get e5 with tempo, then knight e4, and it's worth noticing that c5 is a lot weaker than it would have been with without the exchange of the b pawns. So now I'm going bishop a3 with a little trap in mind. Let's see if my opponent sees it. Sometimes I explain my traps in advance, but sometimes I don't. Oh, knight b4. Okay, we'll go c3. My trap was, in case of knight e7, I would go knight d6 check and then knight g5, and you cannot protect f7. So we'll go for we'll go for something more prosaic instead. Knight d6, knight g5 seems like a decent enough pre-move. Knight h6, I'm gonna go queen h5. And bring a lot of hurt to my opponent's position. f6. Well, no reason not to jump in. Queen e8 is not possible. And the advertised hurt looks like it will happen quite imminently. Okay, we go ef6. Both of the knights are protected at the moment. gf6, only move, king f6, queen g5 would have been mate. And now I think we just start collecting. Way too many of my opponent's pieces are hanging. So we take, yeah, we take that bishop, then we take a rook. Knight and a6 is still hanging. Queen g7 means the knight is still hanging, so I'll take it. And the pawn is now hanging, so I'll take that. And let's see if we can wrap this up with a nice little trap. Now, if queen g2, I would have had bishop h5 followed by rook g1. Now I'll have to settle for something a little more prosaic. Check, king g8 is the only move. Queen c8, queen f8, and I'll take d7, and we continue harvesting. Maybe I'll actually go rook b1 here. Trying to get rook b8 and a quick mate. Seems like almost no worse a move, and it increases the chance of the game being over soon, which is good, because then I get to play more games against more premium members. Knight e7 doesn't seem to help. I just go rook b8 and queen e7. And queen f7 is mate. Okay, yeah. Next time, dude, Gustavsson Gambit. Accept the Gambit. You'll be better off. Okay. Andrew Boards. Is that like Andrew Boards? Because he doesn't seem to be at the board. Let's go. What you waiting for? Oh, there we go. E4. What are we gonna do? We're gonna go for the Sicilian. And now we're gonna go a6 after knight c3. A bit of a funky way to try and get a just neither of Sicilian, and in case my opponent goes for something like the Grand Prix, then I have some different options, like the one I chose. That is very interesting, the move order he's chosen. d4, trying to play a normal, or at least semi-normal open Sicilian. Now I think my opponent has to take with the queen. In case of knight takes d4, then b4 happens. I don't like this. I think now, although I'm a bit behind in development, I do win a fairly clean pawn, I think. Knight a4, bishop e4, bishop c4 maybe. But I'll go knight f6, e6, and usually in the knight off you play d6, which means that e6 is a lot weaker. I think there, as white, you have a lot more chances. Now, yeah, now I feel as though my development is just too good. And e6 is not weak enough. Yeah, rook e1, we'll just go bishop e7. Continue developing the pieces, and once I castle, I'll be very happy. c3, yeah, we'll just castle. Takes, I'll take to quote a very famous chess player. Yeah, not a lot to be said here. With Finnish development, it feels like I'm a pawn up with a very good position and every chance of wrapping the game up fairly soon. Okay, I don't really see the point of knight e2, maybe to go knight g3, but that seems a bit slow. So let me, let me employ one of my favorite techniques, attacking my opponent's pieces, which evidently he did not see. So now I can just gobble up that bishop, I protect e4, and I have very few problems. Maybe the plan was b3, but that just doesn't work. Queen c7, queen c6 back. I protect e4, and no worries. Queen d4. Yeah, that's possible because there's no bishop c5. That square is protected twice, but we'll just take the pawn on g2. No worries. A bishop, a couple of pawns up, and the safer king. Life is good. Rook e3. That doesn't worry me. Bishop h3, threatening mate. That was probably an unfortunate pre-move. And mate comes. Yeah, that was... after I won that pawn in the opening, yeah, that was tough. My opponent was fighting, but it was clearly a, if not lost, then very difficult cause. Okay, we got ourselves an FM. Never played jup before. Jup. How do you say it in Spanish? Never mind. Anyway, we go d4. Now we go for the Queen's Gambit, or in this case, the Slav. a6. Haven't seen that one in a while. Let's go for the move the cool kids play, huh? Queen c2. Problem is, I'm not a cool kid and I don't know a lot about it. But that's not a worry. e6 will go e4. And here we'll take everything. And I think in this case, black's just a tempo down, or a6 is a bit of a wasted tempo in normal positions. Let's just go c5 here. I think that must be reasonable. The point is just to prevent c5 and establish, and also prevent bishop b4 and just establish a very good structure for me. Now, of course, I'll happily, I think, just exchange. No need even to castle queenside, but I'll just do it for the lols. I'll just exchange. I'll just castle queenside and then try and attack. In general, it was unnecessary because I'm just positionally better without those complications. Yeah, I can take b6. I think I'll do it. Oh no. Oh no, that's no good. I wanted to take queen c6 and take some knight e4, and I cannot protect f2. That was a huge mistake. Never mind, we continue to play. Bishop c4. But now it's a lot more complicated. Okay, rook e1. Bishop a6 may be coming. Then we go bishop b3. Yeah, this was really, really poor. I really misplayed this. But I still have a good position though. Now I think I'm probably threatening to take on c6. Maybe still not really, because there's bishop b7 at the end hitting g2. Oh, bishop b5. Well, sometimes when you ask for it, you're gonna get it. So I'll sack a piece and try and break through. Just looks very, very tempting. I think there is very little reason for my opponent to think this knight clearly needs to be captured. Well, I guess not. Takes rook e6, king g7, rook e7, king h6, queen d2, g5, h4 probably was mating. So I can understand, but still, what my opponent did seems to lose quite prosaically. Of course, provided I can keep up at least a reasonable tempo here. But now I'm just 2 pawns up with a great position. We'll offer an exchange of queens. Yeah, queen c7, that was missed. Rook knight f7 seems to be reasonable though. Move the bishop away. Bishop e2, we'll move rook, bishop g4, try and coordinate. We'll just exchange that. Go f4, intending d5. We take on c6, just collecting everything at this point. We'll go back, collect one more pawn. Rook c7. Just keeping everything under control, and there everything goes. Okay, just a second.